Is this the podcast?
And yep, we're live. So, welcome everyone. Today we have a special guest, Raphael. So, he's having 8+ years of experience in recruiting, and he's an awesome recruiter. We've had a lot of chat with him before as well, and he's shared insights that are extremely helpful, especially for freshers and early career students. So, Raphael, again, thank you for joining us, and a bit of introduction from yourself.
Very welcome, Rahul, and many thanks for your invitation. I'm very pleased to be here and to join your awesome podcast. Rahul was approaching me some month ago via LinkedIn, and so we became acquainted. And today is the day when I'm able to speak to you. So about me, just a brief few words. My name is Raphael. I'm based in Berlin, Germany, where I'm born and also lived most of my time. I studied business psychology in a little city near to Hamburg. Then I was traveling around the world here and there, did some stuff until I found my concrete idea what I want to do. And of course, HR topics were part of my studies. So there was always a connection on like what does it need to motivate people, how we can assess skills, how can we make an estimation if someone will be on long-term happy and successful in a role. And so all these thoughts, and of course you can in the best way apply when working as a recruiting manager, talent acquisition specialist. There are different wordings for that. So I started then my job in a company called Optimizely, where I'm in now nearly in 1 month. I will be 7 years working for the company. That company also has, of course, done tremendous change. So it was a German company in the first place, and then it was acquired, became more international. So also my role developed over time and changed always, that it never got boring. So what is my role about? I'm the job giver. I hopefully bring a nice, interesting, fulfilling job to a motivated, skillful person, and that stays together hopefully a few years. It's a bit like matchmaker on dating. Sometimes I have the feeling that you have to it has to match, yeah. So you don't have to hire the best person. It is more about the fitting person to be found. And so my job, to just give a little insight on how daily work looks like, I have always around 20 different roles in the European region where my company is doing business, which is Germany, Sweden, UK, and the Netherlands. Of course, they have more regions where they work, but that are my four areas. So I have 20 positions, which I serve, where I support the hiring manager who want to hire someone. So my job is to work out with them beforehand whom they want to hire, for which amount of money, what skill sets do we want to have, what is realistic, to balance that job profile, we call it. And then, of course, when you publish a role, you hope to get great candidates. Normally, it can happen, but these days, of course, you have also to hunt for good candidates. So the roles have changed a bit. That today the companies are, if you want to see it like that, apply to the candidate. So which is in a way nice, because it's the recruitment is developing more on eye level, depending, of course, on the employment rate of a country. It's not everywhere as it is, but and anyway, it is not about asking down why someone really thinks he or she is the best. It's really to find out can that person stay with that company for amount of time. Of course, to stay forever is also not a good option, because at some point you need fresh air, fresh blood. So of course, there are statistics on turnover time that you say if someone maybe stays 5, 6, 7 years, at some point maybe it's time to move on. So
Right, exactly. So to summarize what you said, you're a matchmaker between the candidate and the company, and you 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 find true love between the two. Okay,
I love.
so that summarizes. So what exactly do recruiters look for in a candidate?
I think first of all, the person should have a mindset which resonates to the company culture in some way. We know that there are creative, chaotic people. We know there are very nitty-gritty, tidy people who have to plan every little step. Of course, very stereotypic spoken, but this should somehow match. So we have the big corporate companies where you can work slow and precise, and we have the startup companies. So this candidate already should think about what for an environment actually I look for to go in. And I as a recruiter, obviously I know how my company looks alike, what works well, what could be improved, what has chances to be successful and what maybe not. And if we talk about expectations of the candidate, sometimes I know that maybe this expectation cannot be fulfilled. Let's say career development, if someone is applying on a very junior role where there's no path behind, sometimes that is the case. So I look for mindset. I look for somehow, let's also say, honesty, at least to that point that data is accurate. There's nothing worse than I find out that somehow the person was not working until the end of the year at the company, but already left in summer. That's why some people put only years in the CV, which I hate, of course. So I will then go from every position down and ask, when have you started? And if you once have that possible inconsistency of information, of course, the recruiter asks more and more, and then it's kind of like at some point, like the police would ask you questions. Then, of course, the energy is not so nice anymore. Then, of course, you have clear, you have KO criteria. Let's take the example of an engineer, a software engineer in Java. Maybe you can have the best mindset, but if you're not know how to code, there is no point in succeeding. So, of course, you have to, or maybe the code language is completely different one. If someone is good in C++, it's too far away from Java. It doesn't help. So some matching of keywords, and of course I cannot in the first screen set the actual Java knowledge, but I can maybe ask some. What I always do is I put myself in the child role. I say, hey, imagine I would be a child. Can you explain your role, what you're actually doing? I'm not a techie. And then the really good tech master is able to tell the story in easy words.
Okay, that's fantastic. So that's exactly what recruiters look for in a candidate. So this creates a perfect segue for our next question, which is like, should the candidates wait to get the perfect skill set before applying for a job?
Yeah, it depends. So, of course, let's say also to our audience now, maybe you're people who will acquire finish the study soon. You should not apply to a senior staff role. There's no point, because if companies requiring 5+ years of experience in the actual work setup, you cannot have that yet. So, of course, somehow some skills have to come over time. On the other side, there is not this ideal candidate. So if there is a job description outside, it's okay to not match all the bullet points. And then, of course, it is also about to sell yourself a little bit. So let's say you have done a Java course in university, you're applying for a junior role. I think that's okay if you somehow know the hello world thing or what. So there should be a realistic possibility that the needed requirements can be obtained over a specific amount of time, and then just sell yourself and tell a nice story why you should get that job.
Right. So the main takeaway is that a proper research should be done, like what the role entails and what is the aspiration of a candidate, right? And
Yes.
yeah. I also want to know, like, what is the dynamic, like in general, of the candidates that you work with? Like, are they entry level candidates who are fresh out of graduation, or who have some tech experience or working experience?
So you mean how the dynamic is within that recruitment
Yeah, like
process?
what? Yeah, like what candidates do you deal with? Like, are the ones who are still
Ah,
in their graduation phase,
all of
or
them,
they have some
all of
working
them.
experience, right? Like,
I
so
have all of them.
yeah,
So we have internships we offer. We have working student models. I have entry level positions, senior positions. I look for directors every now and then. So I have the whole bandwidth. And obviously, I think this is important. Also, maybe this is about what you more want to say with the dynamic. If you have an
right,
candidate who applies for an internship, you don't have to ask him about where do you see yourself in 10 years and what do you want, whatever, to achieve in life, and these big questions. Maybe it's just the person wants to get started. That's it. That's all. And you don't have to make a third round and an assessment center and to take references. This is all too much. But of course, if we take the other end, we should be very sure that the manager person who will maybe lead different teams is very, very well screened, like by background screening, by reference taking, by maybe assessment centers, is that if that is needed. So it really depends, and also the expectation on how someone should structure him or herself's own life varies. I have no problem. Some junior person maybe still is telling about things which are not fully relevant to the role and maybe get lost in between. And if someone is a full professional, then I would rate that as a not being organized if someone cannot be straight on the information point.
like, are there any tips? Like, do you have any tips for the entry level, like the graduate ones who are getting looking forward to get started in a career, or looking forward to build a career in this but technology tech that you hire for? So, like, are there any tips that you'd like to give to those candidates?
Yes. So in particular to ready entry positions, or yeah, to young professionals who are just maybe to take on the first or second job, definitely concentrate and focus on the mindset thing. So they wouldn't win on the hard skill set side. So it is about to make research. Again, what is the company actually placing themselves outside, and then to tell the story that the mindset on that and that points, there's a high probability that the person will acquire also the hard skills. So more concentrated on the soft skill side.
Yeah. So before the podcast, when we were having a chat, you said you don't have to be the best. You need to be the fittest, which is also the motto for today. So could you explain to our audience who exactly are fit candidates?
Yeah, with pleasure. Yeah, somehow this quote sounds a little bit Darwinistic, but what I what I want to say with that is that the perfect candidate is probably someone you can anyway not afford by salary expectation. So a company should more put the energy on who will, like, maybe another see nothing to see it is recruiting is a future bet on someone's success in a very role. So you have these 1, 2, 3 rounds, a few hours of making a decision, both sides, both, by the way. And this is this, what I mean with future bet. You make a bet into the future if that works out or not. And so you better look for someone who fits in by, again, mindset, the career development expectation of someone's self, like how fast someone wants to maybe be promoted in his or her own path. And you will find out that if someone might have less experience in a concrete part of the technical assessment, but the person is maybe just a nicer person. So we have to still remember that if someone works in full time, this is 8 hours or more each day, and they might spend more time than with the family and friends. So you should have someone in the team you can imagine spend time with. You don't have to get best friends, but it should not be it should be somehow fun to not also take things too serious. That, let's say, you're standing on the coffee machine as an example, and you dare maybe even to make a silly joke, and that you should not always have this feeling, oh, I'm now in a professional environment, better I'm closed shop. And in order to achieve that, you need you need nice people. Don't hire assholes. Yeah, this is also which I. And if there is a doubt, better not hire. This is also a clear how to say navigation point. If there's a doubt, don't do it. Better to make a mistake and not hire a good person than to make the mistake and hire a bad person.
Yep, that's very interesting. And again, that's why we have you here, because these insights, not a lot of people talk about these insights. Um, Especially in India, we have so many tutorials and they're guaranteeing success by saying that if you learn these things, you're going to, kill it in the interviews and etc. But we know that it's not true because we've been through that. And you, as a recruiter, you've seen thousands of students and you have a lot of experience to share. And if you're saying something like this, so of course it's going to be true, right?
I would be curious. Could you maybe tell me what for concrete guarantee advices there are around in India? I would be super excited to know of them.
Yep, I would be more than happy to share a few videos with you. Okay, so there are a lot of what can you say, misguidance in India, especially for tier 3 students from tier 3 institutions or tier 2. um, they're guaranteed success by just learning some concepts, by learning data structures and algorithms. They're told that they will crack any interview by learning these technologies, which is far from the truth. Far from the truth. We know that now,
Right.
right? Just learning these things, it's not going to guarantee success. Even if you're hired, it's a long process after that. Like the life is so long, and you need to work well in the company as well. You need to work uh, well in your future as well. So just getting hired is not the goal, right?
Right.
And they sell these things as if once you get hired, everything is all right, and your life is
Lot
awesome.
of focus is a lot of focus is put on the technical skills, and I've hardly seen,
Hmm.
like Rahul said, now there are many coaches who guide you for guaranteed success, and they do not put any emphasis on soft skills. Like you mentioned now that a good teammate is one who has a great social adaptability, who can gel with his teammate and uh, not take things seriously. So soft skills are not taken into consideration in India. Like what this is what I have seen. So I believe that developing these skills is also as important
Yeah,
as
and
gaining
also
experience or developing
it's
technical
I
skills.
think it's from both the sides, because I've seen some students, some candidates were like, as you said, I'm going to quote you, assholes. But I've also seen some recruiters who are not very nice. They're very rude sometimes, and
Yeah.
that's also not a good thing, right?
Yes, imagine also recruiters are getting hired. So if you don't make a good hiring process, you hire simply a bad recruiter. This can be tragic. If you have a bad recruiter,
Right.
we are selling the company. So if I'm not a nice person and I'm even recruiting, this is actually the worst which can happen.
Yeah,
There are few
yeah,
positions where you can have such an impact on bad employer branding. Yeah.
definitely, totally agree. So Aryan has this question: how do you
Exactly.
know
Yes.
someone has a friendly personality, and what are the most important traits that you look for?
Yeah, good. Very good question. Thank you for that, Aryan. Of course, again, you cannot know because the recruitment is only a little window inside of someone. But to get started, the interview, and not directly jump into it, but more like, of course, the small talk as we know it, and the small talk to maybe to include some maybe I sometimes try to put some personal flavor into it, so that I open myself and to see is the other person willing to do that as well. And of course, sometimes people have hobbies in their CV, which is a great thing, by the way. I would definitely always put a hobby into it, and of course, to really have that hobby. Obviously, there's not always this reading book and traveling. Okay, maybe it's a hobby, but then to let's have a 2-minute conversation about a book someone has read, or a nice place someone has traveled. And if you only get answers where the person is not opening, I cannot know if the person is friendly or not. And if the person is opening, still it can be an unfriendly person. But if you normally trust your gut feeling, this is my own style to get an assessment of that. Yeah, and of course it's highly subjective, but again, you know your managers, you know what they need, and if the person has a chance to succeed there, maybe like yes, I would
Right.
answer that.
Yep, that's an awesome answer. And the next one we have is how to sell yourself.
Yeah, this is a big answer, a big question where there are many answers, and you can of course oversell yourself, which is again like selling yourself
Okay.
in a bad way. So
Right.
we have to see it from different angles probably. So to start with,
Let's go
introverted.
over all of them.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we start with, let's say, personality traits. So someone who is more shy and introverted has maybe a harder chance because the person will just tell what he or she is really good in, and maybe the other parts just leave out and is not selling him or herself. So I think it is about to be honest, precise, diligent on the things you really know, and then to make it turn it a bit into a story. So there's nothing better than prove a concrete skill set with a story where you have proven that. And we human beings, we love stories much more than statistics. So sometimes, I mean, numbers are nice, but somehow they don't stick. So ideally, you combine some revenue, whatever. Let's say you're a sales manager and you have to show your revenue numbers, obviously, but then somehow link it with this personal touch. If you oversell yourself, then the expectations later on will not be met. So I would say again, maybe like when you're going onto a date, you also try to a bit more maybe than so let's say you should so tell the story that you actually believe yourself you can become. Yeah. Thanks.
Right. I think the next question is
Okay.
like, so any tips for Indian candidates in general? Like, uh, have you noticed any problems in Indian candidates who are applying for a particular role, and do you think that they can improve in this particular aspect, or are there any general tips?
Yeah, I have a few tips. It's a delicate topic because we know that in different cultures different traits do work out. So these tips maybe should only be seen maybe as a tip which maybe I from a European perspective have. So if someone, let's say an Indian candidate, applies to a role based in Germany, then maybe that tip is useful. And within India, I simply don't know. So this I just want to say in advance. And of course, there are many Indian people in the world. So of course, it's a thing of probability that at some point you get Indian candidates on roles. So that means why I'm saying that is that of course I deal with several Indian candidates every week, and a pattern which I somehow found out is that many CVs are way too long. So let's take an example of someone having 5 years of experience. The CV should not have more than 2, maximum 3 pages. And what I normally see is that Indian candidates do really show the whole project description. So there's a position of 2-3 years, employer is mentioned, and then they give every point on what they worked. And this is too long. So I have maybe many applications on one role, and I have to use my time wisely. And much more, of course, I wonder then if the person might be able to put on the relevant onto something. And interestingly, there's now, that's not mentioned to India, this is in general, also in Germany, the structure and the diligence and also the style of a CV indeed correlates with future success in the role. That means that when I was a young student, I didn't believe that. I thought, well, what does a CV say about me as a person, as a personality? I'm much more than a paper, and of course you all are. But someone able to really design a CV on 2, again, maximum 3 pages. With picture, without picture is up to you. There are different thoughts on that. But to have like a clear like data, first, live address and contact data, phone and so on, then of course the
I'm sorry, we lost you in the last bit due to
yes,
some connectivity issues.
oh yeah,
Can you repeat the last
am I
sentence?
back again? Yeah,
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I was just talking about the structure of the CV, that the correlation on future success is indeed there. So that means really to make that nice, have precise information, no redundant information. This is a big step. This is on the first
I think we lost you again.
Now the second tip. I know. The second tip within the conversation is to open up. I have the feeling that many Indian candidates have a clear narrative on how to present them. So that means they start like a script which is starting after university and then goes chronologically until today. I don't want to hear that. I want to ask in between question. I want to have a dialogue. I want to again ask about hobbies because I would like to know the person again. And so I have the feeling that many candidates somehow are not prepared for that type of question, which of course brings us then into a maybe I produce discomfort, and I'm sorry for that. I don't want to do that, but this is a way to again tell me about the hobby, tell me about the weakness. I sometimes ask really what was something when have you failed? We have all failed in life for sure, and we have all
I've
a
never
role
failed.
model.
I don't have any weakness.
No, of
Yeah.
course, no. We all
Like,
have, but Rahul not.
this is the general answer that the Indian candidates give, right? I don't have any weaknesses. I've never failed. So this is the generalized answer what they give. Anyway,
Yeah.
so like I also want to know uh, what should be the right approach to answer these questions, which are like you said that tell me a time about when you failed and how you tackled with that failure. What was your reaction to that? Like how should one answer to these
You
questions, these
frame
types of questions?
these answers, yes.
As I will ask, so what I would do as a candidate, maybe I would ask for more preciseness. So I would ask a recruiter, what for a failure actually do you mean? And then maybe I say, well, whatever was a time when you felt sad. So I will try to have a conversation, and there's no script. So these questions not always have to be answered by a business perspective. Also, one point. So when I ask, when have you been? Who's your role model? Maybe it's are your parents, and no, not a Steve Jobs. So I think we should allow the private sector more into the recruitment process, because it helps anyway. Also the candidate. If then you have a strange recruiter, then maybe you as a candidate don't want to work with that company because the recruiter sells the company. So it is also helpful for a candidate to get this feeling if he or she is like accepted that way. Yeah.
Okay. I've always been someone who is apprehensive of the fact that if you negotiate your salary, you might lose out on job. And since you are here, I think this is the right time for this question. So how to negotiate salary with a recruiter, and especially for females, because I think men oversell ourselves.
Okay. On the gender thing, I will go into a minute. How to negotiate salary. This is a great question, and we know it maybe from the bazaar, yeah, that who gives the first number is in a losing position somehow, which doesn't mean that this is bad. But of course, I as a recruiter would ask you, hey, what is your salary expectation? And you as a candidate should ideally, before I ask that question, ask, hey, what is the budget for that role? And the person who asks first normally will get an answer, because if you are not answering my question, ask what is the budget for the role, this has a straight flavor. Imagine you're turning the question in the moment I ask it. No, better to ask early enough, but of course not in the first hello. So maybe when there's a good maybe if there's the conversation going on about promotion or career development in that role, then maybe it makes sense to talk about that. And it's definitely so that in nearly every company there will be a budget approved by finance. So that means I, as a recruiter, I want to fill a role. So I might even be on the candidate side. I'm not the person like negotiating down the candidate, because this doesn't help me. The manager normally also wants to have someone good. So normally companies do try to, the managers from the team, they try to use the full budget. Finance, on the other side, is happy if you do not take the full budget. And if you even have to increase the budget or go over that number, you have to ask for further justification. That's my perspective. So that means if you're able to ask a question first, better for the candidate. If the recruiter does the job well, he or she will ask that before. And that moment the question comes, you should have a number, and ideally make the number, and male candidates normally are aware of that, not too low, because you can go down later on. I have the observation, sadly, in my own thousands of interview, indeed, and of course the statistics worldwide, I'm sure in India too, they show that female candidates do state a number which really resonates to their actual skill set. They tell it a realistic number, and maybe then that means that I will give a lower number and we go down a bit. And male candidates normally they oversell themselves. They just give a high number and say, well, I don't make that money anyway, so I give a high number so that I in the end get the number I want to reach. And I can give the clear advice to all women in the world that to play tougher here, and also do that, even though it's maybe not, doesn't sound like a nice style, but this is how it works. And what I can do as a recruiter, of course, from the company side, is to sometimes even I share free willingly the budget of the role just myself to a female candidate, in order to not come into that situation. And this is what I say.
So given that you've had so many interview experiences, you've had so many candidates, how accurate would you say that the listings on Glassdoor are?
Sorry, can you repeat what was Glassdoor?
Are you familiar with Glassdoor listings?
Yeah, of course. We have a similar site in Germany called Kununu, but of course Glassdoor is well known in the world. And
yeah, so how accurate their salary expectations are? Are they definitely on point, or are they above or below? Or do they vary?
Let's say they are approaching the range. They are a good measuring to get a first calibration. If you have no clue what to earn, definitely Glassdoor is a good spot to get started. Yeah.
All right, that's nice. Okay, so I think we're out of questions, and currently we only have about 7 to 8 minutes of live questions. So any live viewer who's currently here watching, they can ask their questions. And you have Raphael. While you have him, ask good questions. This
is your chance.
This is a very nice opportunity. This is your chance.
Yep.
On which platforms do German companies hire the most?
Yes. And how do you figure out if a company offers visa help if it's not mentioned in the job description?
Yeah, good question. So first, definitely LinkedIn, Indeed are relevant platforms in Germany too. There is another platform called Xing, like xing.com, which is the German LinkedIn. And there is a site which is called stepstone.de, which is the biggest job platform in Germany. The next question, a company is either mentioning that in benefits that they offer visa help, or you get that visa help only if you are really the best candidate. So it's a lot of bureaucracy to be done, which many HR administrations do not like to do, which is of course also a sad story. But of course, of course you will only make that extra work if you are kind of sure this is worth getting that person. It's of course also for the candidate a big deal, yeah, to leave continent to get settled. So we in Optimizely we do that, but indeed it takes time. So I expect from a candidate at least that he or she did some research self, maybe having a talk with the embassy. And is aware of what it takes. Of course, there are then sometimes there are salary requirements you have to match for a specific role in order to get blue card, for example, in the European Union. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so
And
is it
yeah, go
yes,
ahead.
Rahul, go on.
it's
Go
written
ahead,
on the
Devang. Go
screen?
ahead.
Is it necessary to know German language for doing a job in
Uh,
Germany?
Definitely fully depends on company and the job role. So I now will only answer for Optimizely. So if you have a client-facing contact, then we require German skills. So for all the customer success managers, for sales managers, technical support, they need to speak German, even nearly fluent, or of course technical writer, obviously. Then of course we have other positions where we need the technology professionals like system engineers, software engineers, IT administrators. They don't have to speak German. They have to speak a fluent English, and I'm checking that even before the interview, so that we do not lose time in. Let's say we need to meet a great person, but if the person if there's a KO criteria on language, then there's no point in succeeding when it's not there.
Right.
Definitely. So
Right.
basically, to summarize it, you're given the requirement from the company themselves. It's not something that you look out for yourself, right?
So in the job description, normally I would write a fluent German if that is required. And
Okay.
as a candidate, of course, you cannot really know how the company is ticking. So
Okay.
sometimes the research help, but even in Optimize, as mentioned, sometimes some jobs were required and others not. So it's worth trying. Language barrier for
All right.
roles. Yeah, definitely. So English always, I would say, is the key language in all the positions, and even an understandable English. I think this is also important to mention that sometimes this makes easier if the English is understandable. Yeah, I don't know if that
Yeah,
answers the question.
definitely makes sense. Um, so I think we don't have any more questions in the pipeline.
I have one question. Like, I mean, it is a pretty important question. Like, if there are cases when someone reaches out to a recruiter for a job role. So, how should one draft a message or write a mail? Like, what are the key points that one needs to keep in mind before reaching out to a recruiter directly
Mm-hmm.
on
Yeah, this
LinkedIn or
happens.
via email?
And
Yeah.
so the advice here is definitely to have at least one position as an example. Because if you just write me, hey, I'm a great person, do you have a job for me? I will simply not reply. I have not the time for that. So I need you to make the research beforehand, which of the maybe 100 jobs which are available on the job board are actually of your interest. And then to also have worked out in which country are they. Optimizely has whatever 20 locations. So I would like to know that if you are applying to that senior software role, that you know that this is based in Berlin. If based in Berlin, and that you maybe do not expect that this role then for some reason you can work out from London. Just so there are these and of course I would try to write it in a charming way. So maybe you make the research on the recruiter, you find out where he has studied. Every recruiter has their own profile on LinkedIn, maybe even something. And if you bring out here, I mean, this costs you 5 minutes of research, I will definitely have a moral obligation to answer you at least. If I see that you did your homework in approaching me, I will do the same to you.
Yeah, that's very nice, and of course it's helpful because a lot of people just they spam a lot of recruiters and they cold. I guess it's called cold applying, and certainly, as you said, that doesn't help, right? So
By
one
the
last
way,
question before you go.
it happens the other way around too, of course, that many recruiters and sometimes even I'm pushed, you have to write many people on. Of course, also the recruiters are writing the bulk messages, and sometimes candidates are also like, hey, listen, this question, this job offer now you're making is completely not matching my profile. This also happens, and of course we have to get better, we recruiters, that we take the needed time to approach the right candidates for the right role. So yeah.
Right.
Of course. So one last question before you go is optimizely hiring freshers or early professionals,
Yes, of course, we do.
and where should they apply?
Yes, we need unconventional people. So for sure, there can be some contact details shared afterwards here as well in the chat or wherever.
Yeah, we'll put the links in the
Contact.
description. So I'll just write this as a banner, and this will be the message while we go. Anything else that uh, we're not professionals, so anything that we might have left out, something very important that you might think?
There's always something which could be added, but I want to give a huge shout out and compliment to you guys, because as I see you are all still studying, you are in your 20s, likely.
Yep.
And you're doing that podcast just so because you have fun. And now to make the big picture, if you would now to apply to a job and you would tell me that you're doing that project where you're making probably no money with that, just so, I would be super thrilled on motivation. So each of you definitely would get a huge score on motivation and intrinsic getting things done. You just do it for whatever reason, for own fun, for learning something, for meeting interesting people. I don't know what is your motivation, but you're doing it. This is what is counted. It's in the internet found. So this result would say, and I could have done more in my young 20s on that. I have to admit, and these things do matter, and they have to be included in the CV, and they have to be talked about in the interview. So any cool private hobby which has maybe nothing to do with your career profession in the end helps to sell you as a respected person, which I think you all are. So I can really say great that you do that. Thanks for inviting me, and to keep on going. Invite more interesting
Thanks a lot.
people from other topics.
Thanks for joining in, talking to us.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Again, Optimizely is hiring, and we'll connect with Raphael
put
and
links
put the
in the
links in the description. Thanks a lot, everyone, for watching. Again, thanks, Raphael, for being here present and sharing all of your insights. Have a
Thank
good day,
you, guys.
everyone.
True
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.